All right, good evening, everybody. I'm extremely thrilled to introduce and be here with you all for the MPH Alumni Transitioning to the Workforce Tips and Tricks for Successfully Transitioning to the Workforce for 2024 panel. I'm Zach Jenkins. I'm the Director of Applied Practice here at the Arnold School of Public Health. Today, we have three of our former all-star students who have now traversed into the workforce and are on to bigger and better things. So I'm gonna try and do something I normally don't do, which is not talk a lot and try and let them do most of the talking. But just want to give some ground rules for the presentation before we kind of pop into things. Just please demonstrate respect for our speakers and other attendees. Please keep your mics off throughout the presentation unless you're asking a question, and it'll be informal. So feel free to raise your hand or type something in the chat, but just be mindful and respectful of that. Also, yeah, feel free to drop questions in the chat virtually, raise your hand. And we're recording a webinar, so don't do anything crazy that you may want out in the ether. You wouldn't want out in the ether forever. So I already got all my craziness out before we started recording. So that's just kind of the ground rules for today. So I will let our panelists introduce themselves, but I'll kind of pass it to each of you each. So they're going to give us a brief introduction, which program they graduated from and what they're currently doing. So Khushali, you're first up on my screen, so I'm going to turn it over to you.
Of course. Hi, everyone. My name is Khushali Shah. I graduated from Arnold School of Public Health last year in May 2023. It's almost been a year. It's crazy. But my major was epidemiology and minor in stats. And I currently work as a research data analyst with National Cancer Institute, which is the NCI, which is a part of NIH. And my current job role is around breast cancer research. So I basically do all the analyses, run models, and help and write papers with all my fellow colleagues at NCI. So yeah, that's me. I'm really looking forward to chatting with you all today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Khushali. So Jessica, I see you up next on my screen. So why don't you go ahead?
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Jessica Thompson. I did the Health Services Policy and Management. Sorry, it's been a long time. Health Services Policy and Management Program, MPH at USC. And I went a different route and ended up in environmental conservation. So I'm working for Richland County in the conservation division as a sustainability planner. So I do all things conservation. That includes historical preservation, environmental conservation, as well as land conservation. So conservation everywhere. And there are some public health aspects that kind of overlap, and I'll get into that later, but it's really awesome. Good to meet everyone.
Thank you for sharing so much. And last but certainly not least, we're going to turn it over to Kasey, who's experiencing a health issue, so she's going to spare us from turning on her camera because it has something to do with her eye, but she's happy to be here. So Kasey, why don't you take it away?
Hey y'all, yes, I apologize. I'm having some technical difficulty with my eye. But I'm Kasey Drayton. I graduated from the MPH APH program, so that's the physical activity and public health concentration. 2023, yes, again, it's been a year. It's crazy. Currently, I work at Moffitt Cancer Center. I work within clinical research, so I'm a clinical research coordinator associate. And so basically, I'm kind of the first step of help to the actual clinical trial coordinators. I work within the cutaneous department, so that's like skin cancer, and basically just work with any of the patients who are looking to enroll in clinical trials. Since I'm kind of an associate role, I don't do treatment trials or anything like that, mainly just non-therapeutic clinical trials for now. But really just like the title says, I coordinate with patients, a lot of busy work, a lot of administrative work. But yeah.
Right on. So let's hop right into it. So what we want to hear from is from y'all about your public health story about finding your current job and all the things that went into that. Because we know if we ask 10 different public health people how they got into their careers, you'll probably get 10 very different trajectories to get there. So I'll open up that question to all of you. So whoever would like to go first, take it away.
I'll go first. I'll go first. Okay. So, oh gosh, rewind to undergrad, and I switched around my major so many times till I settled on public health. I didn't know what public health was. I just kind of did it because I knew I wanted to be in health and help people. But I didn't know what I wanted to do, what jobs were out there, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So then I graduated and I still didn't know what I wanted to do. So then I got my master's and I did a concentration in health services policy and management. That I still was learning about. I didn't really know what that entailed. It seemed interesting, and so that's the route that I went, and I loved it. I loved it so much. Met a lot of great people, learned a lot about the healthcare side of things and operations management kind of things on that side. And then my final year of the program, I took an elective class that was environmental health, and with Dr. Porter, and he's the best. He is the reason that I kind of decided to veer off into a different section of public health. That's kind of, people don't really think about it, but, you know, community development, sustainability. So I loved it so much. And that one class kind of got me looking at the environmental side of things. And that's my story of how I started applying to jobs in the environmental side and got to where I am. Did I answer that question? I don't know.
I can go next. So also a little rewind for me. So I'm originally from India. I did my bachelor's of dental surgery from India, so I had never thought of public health as the next step when I was graduating. But while I was so we have an internship year where we practice dentistry in rural areas and underserved areas. And I think that's when it hit me that how much um, there's so much need of public health resources and people in public health um, for the healthcare sector in India. So that's when I started diving in more into the public health courses and possibly universities who offered a public health course. And I, of course, landed up going to USC, which was great. But while I was at USC, I also worked as graduate assistant with DHEC, and that was in the cancer registry. Um, so that experience taught me a lot and also brought me a lot closer to cancer research, where I am in right now. And I think while working, I gradually knew that I always wanted to do something related to cancer research. And also I was talking about starting the process of job search. It was very overwhelming. That's the only word I can use. But somehow we all got through it. So I'm sure all of you will get through it. But while looking for jobs, I think my main source was LinkedIn, if we are talking about sources for applying to jobs. And the main a big shout out to Zach, because he has been with me through all the phases. Even even when I got the research assistant job with DHEC, and also looking for internships and everything job related. So thanks, Zach. A big thanks goes to you. But yeah, while I was applying for jobs, I did not keep I knew that I wanted to do something in cancer research, but it wasn't restricted to cancer research. But yeah, I think that's my public health story. And I also hope I answered your question.
Yes, of course. So Kasey, tell us a little bit about your story and the journey that led to that, to your job now.
Yeah, so my journey's a little wonky. So I got my bachelor's in psychology. I played basketball in undergrad, so I bounced around to quite a few schools. So it really didn't even feel like I got a degree in psychology by the time I got through everything. Um, so I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So what better thing to do than go get a master's degree? So I actually initially I went to school for sports psychology because that's what I thought I wanted to do. I thought I needed to stay within the psychology world and wanted to stay within sports. Went through that program. It was during COVID. Things kind of just didn't work out the way that we all thought they were going to. So what do? You go and get another master's, of course. So that's kind of how I stumbled into public health. Um, I figured I wanted to do something that could kind of tie into my sports psych degree. So that's kind of how I discovered the physical activity emphasis. I ended up at South Carolina. And with that, really, even after graduation, wasn't 100% sure like what route I wanted to take, anything like that. I honestly, when it came to finding a job, my approach was apply for everything and see what sticks. We do have an organization here in my hometown in St. Pete, Healthy St. Pete. I originally applied for a position there, interviewed, and it was a supervisor role that I on paper was qualified for, but it was one of those things where like you just didn't have enough experience, and it kind of sucked because I would have been working with the community, which is things that I enjoy doing. I like interacting with people. And so really was just on LinkedIn looking at any and everything. Didn't really have a set plan. Really was in this economy, any job, anyone that hires me. That was my approach to it. So I came across Moffitt, and I wasn't necessarily looking in particular at clinical research, but it just something stuck out about it. My dad did cancer treatment at Moffitt, and I was like, oh, what a better thing to do than, I don't know, try to work at Moffitt. That would be cool. And so I applied. Literally like the next day they reached back out, and I was like, okay, this is a good thing. Kind of might be a bad thing too, though, that they reached out so quick, but we're gonna roll with it. And so my interview process was forever. It took a really long time, and it was kind of discouraging. But I think I ended up in the right place. I feel like it's kind of a full circle thing that I ended up working in cancer research, that I'm at Moffitt. And is it necessarily where I see myself long term? Not necessarily, but I'm enjoying it, and I do think I'm learning a lot. So I'm in a space where I'm appreciating the journey right now, and that's kind of the approach that I'm taking with everything. So hopefully that answers a little bit of the question.
Well, 100%. And I think that's a good way to be happy, is just to enjoy the journey. Because I believe everybody who is on our call that is not y'all right now are just finished their first year of their MPH program. So I know for many of us, like, well, I just want to get done so I can get out there and start doing all this stuff. Yeah, I think enjoying the journey is an important part of that. So speaking about the journey, now you all have your jobs and careers and salaries, and it's like, okay, well, life is good. But maybe talk a little bit more about some of the emotions that went into, or the ups and downs or in-betweens of just the job search process. Kasey, I know you said you kind of were applying to everything, and Khushali, I think you mentioned you applied to many things also. So if you guys wouldn't mind just talking about that component of it a little bit, because it is a little emotionally draining going through all of that.
Yeah, I can answer that first. So I don't know if we have any international students on the call right now, but just to give you a little background, that being an international student, you only get like 90 days after you graduate to find yourself a job. And if not, you might have to go back to your home country. Like that's the rule of the US immigration and the US government. So that was itself very emotionally and like it was very mentally challenging, that what if it doesn't work out, and what if I have to go back after, like I at least wanted to work and gain some experience in this country where I got my degree from before going back home. So like while applying for jobs, my only thought was like, honestly, the only thought was the first priority was to get a job, no matter what it is, where it is. So I did not, as I said, I did not restrict my job search to like a specific program or a specific state, or yeah, I did not have those filters. So I did apply to everything and anything that I came across. But also like, and like talking specifically about this job that I'm doing at NIH right now, it took a long time to get me hired. Like I got my first interview maybe in April, and then I did not hear back from them for like a month and a half. So I had literally lost hope that why, like there's no reason they're gonna get back to me, or they're gonna, reach out to me and say, hey, you're selected. But it did happen. So please don't be discouraged if you don't hear back from the employers. For a long time. Sometimes it's just that the process is pretty long, like they have to go through like certain departments to get you hired. And especially for an international student, there was a different process for them to get me hired. So and also the major learning that I learned was like even after you interview for someone who you really like, or you think that the interview has gone well, there's no guarantee that they would get back to you and you would get hired. So please don't stop applying for jobs until and unless you have an offer letter in your hand, especially when you're in a time frame like me. So that was my biggest thing. That the only good part was that I was very excited, and I was looking forward to working at NIH. And like from the brief meeting that I had with my now manager, I really liked her, and I had, looked her up, and I was very excited to be a part of her team. But having said that, I did not only stick to one thing, and I did interview for other people also. I mean, other organizations also. But like speaking about emotions overall, it was very overwhelming, as I said, because I had that time crunch in my head. Like the clock was constantly ticking for me, and I had to get myself a job before I run out of time. So the only thing, like there was nothing in my hands, but the only thing that I could do was just keep applying until I hear back. So yeah, that was my time during my job search.
So when did you start applying for jobs then, just as a brief follow-up, since it
Yeah.
was such a time-sensitive issue?
Yeah, that's right. I actually started applying in February end, to be honest. I did not do like much applications, but like from whatever I had heard from like my seniors or someone that I knew who had done an MPH and who was also an international student, I was advised that just start a little bit early so that you don't get overwhelmed and you don't get anxious towards the end. And also because like the semester at the end gets crazy. Like you have so many assignments due and so much to do when you're graduating. So some of my friends, they also started like earlier in February. So I was still late to the party, but I started in February. I wasn't like doing like a job, like a very intensive job search, but I at least started looking at the places. I also reached out to a lot of people. Yeah, that is another thing I wanted to highlight, that while like looking for a job, I would suggest like if there's a specific company or a specific university that you want to go to and work as an MPH graduate, I would also recommend reaching out to people, because I know like all of them, they wouldn't get back to you, but there are some people who genuinely want to help you, and they would, respond to your emails or your messages on LinkedIn. So please don't hesitate to ever reach out to someone you think might be helpful, or like to someone who might be a good guiding role in your job search.
I can go next. So I guess I'll start by saying that I kind of have a bone to pick with LinkedIn. Um, I thought that in public health, well, for me anyway, LinkedIn was really hard to find good jobs in public health. I think that it took so much it took so much willpower for me to say like, hey, stop hitting easy apply, because the easy apply jobs are not, it's not worth it. It's just going to waste your time. And that's like my complete honest opinion on that, because I would see jobs like, because I'm local, so I live in Columbia, so there's so many jobs like in Columbia that are, oh, easy apply, or even just like applying straight through LinkedIn. So then once I got past the easy apply and just regular applying on LinkedIn, even then it wasn't specifically something that I was necessarily interested in. It was just something that I was seeing on my For You. And I will also say that on my like recommended, there was also like very low. So that was another emotional thing for me. It was things that were kind of below what I thought that I was worth working. So the things that I was saying that was suggested for me, I was like, oh gosh, is it really suggested for me? So then I went outside of LinkedIn, and like I feel like the clouds parted and the sun came down, because there are just so many other things, like because I work in government, and so for a government job you have to go directly to the website and apply through their page, and it's kind of a longer process, but I would say it's worth it, because there are a lot of good government jobs, and I know that some people don't necessarily want to do that, but that's the route I went down. And so I applied, and I was hesitant because my mindset was like, oh no, I don't want to like get in this cycle. But it turns out that it's not like that at all. And everyone is awesome and very responsive to me, that during that process. So I applied to Richland County, for the sustainability planner position. And that was a new position that had been created recently. So I don't think it had been filled in a couple years. So in terms of what the role was asking for, it was kind of flexible. And I think that was a good opportunity for me. And I kind of jumped on that just because, I come from a public health background, and this is a job that's saying, hey, we have some flexibility with who we want on our team. And yeah, so I kind of told them my whole story. And another thing I will say is that like my resume on paper, I feel like does not do a good job describing my skill set. And my flexibility to be able to learn new things, such as switching to environmental, which now, oh my gosh, I feel like public health environmental. I know I feel like I'm even playing field. But yeah, so I don't know. I don't know. That was very emotionally hard it was very emotional for me, just because I felt like I saw people left and right getting hired, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm from Columbia and nobody's hiring me. What's going on? But I guess my biggest advice was, if you are stuck scrolling on LinkedIn, close LinkedIn and open up other tabs and look elsewhere. Go to the pages and apply there, because most likely the good jobs may not be posted to LinkedIn. So that's my advice.
So I can go ahead and jump in and try to share my experience with everything. I can agree that like emotionally, just applying for jobs, period, is an emotional roller coaster. Especially with just the way the job market is set up right now. It just to start everything off, just prepare yourself to not even face rejection, but just to literally never hear back from people. And I think for me, that was like the most frustrating part. Not even the few jobs that I did, really only the one other job that I actually interviewed for and got rejected from was not nearly as like emotionally damaging as like applying and then you just never hear back. Because in my mind, I'm like, you literally can just send me email and say, hey, we don't want you. Cool, that's fine. But that's just something that you have to prepare yourself for, and just realize that it's quite literally not you. So like never hearing back from someone has no reflection on you, your skill set, your ability. Like a lot of these places, whether you apply on LinkedIn, whether you're applying on the website of the actual company, they have things in place where a real person might not even be looking at your resume. So you might be getting filtered out based on literally one random word that's in your resume. So just take those things with a grain of salt, just to kind of start everything off. But I do want to say, like, my journey. So the initial position that I interviewed for was with, like I said, Healthy St. Pete. I actually kind of had an inside connection. I had already been in contact with kind of like the main head lady. And my mom also works for Healthy St. Pete already. So and I knew someone was leaving. So I kind of was able to get my foot in the door that way. I reached out and was like, hey, I was informed that this position would be opening up soon. I know it's not posted yet, but could I get some more information? Not gonna lie, it was very daunting at first because like you're literally reaching out to like a supervisor, like, hey, do you want to kind of give me more information about this job that I heard is opening because I have an inside source? But in reality, they don't really mind. It's a scary thing to think of at first to send that email, but just send it. At the end of the day, the worst thing they can do is just say no. That's how you have to look at things. And so that was really the first job I applied for after graduation. I knew it was opening. We graduated beginning of May. It was opening up beginning of June. And so the way I approached things was, yes, I was applying to literally any and everything, but the way that I'm set up is I kind of put all my eggs in one basket. So while I knew that I was going to be interviewing for this position, I was still looking at other stuff, but kind of just hoping that this would go through. And then when I didn't get that position, that's when I kind of opened my search back up. So that was kind of my approach to things. Don't necessarily recommend that. Don't be like me. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. But I did have a lot of the jobs where on paper you're qualified, you go to the application. Like for example, one of them, the description was like, oh, do you have 2 years of clinical research experience or equivalent schooling, things like that you can kind of show for. So I'm like, don't have the experience, but I have the schooling. So I'm thinking I go to the application, there's going to be an option for me to kind of say that. I said, no, I don't have clinical research experience because I don't want to lie, instantly got kicked out of the application. So to me, that was frustrating because it's like, okay, the job description is not matching what you guys are actually asking on the application, but okay. But again, it's one of those things where I started taking those things. I wasn't meant to be there, at least not right now. Just it's redirection. And so, like I said, was in this time, I'm applying for anything, wasn't hearing back. So then the Moffitt opportunities came up. And like I said, kind of heard back right away from them. But just to kind of put in perspective, I got my first email to set up an interview like July. I was just looking up my emails, July 31st. My first day was not until November 27th. So just to kind of put in perspective how long the process might take, I was in constant contact with everybody, but still just that process of not really knowing and then knowing me putting all my eggs in one basket. In that point in time, I was not looking at anything else. I was like, this is great. My interviews are going great. It really too was, I initially applied for it was still entry level, but kind of mid entry. And kind of in that process, they basically were like, yeah, you're qualified for this, but you've never worked in this type of environment before. So we don't want you to get kind of overwhelmed. So they did bump me down to like a super entry level. You honestly could have any type of background for the position that I'm in. It's in clinical research. It is technically public health, but you just need a high school diploma for this. So that was kind of like an ego shot, a tiny bit. But now that I'm in the role, I understand why they did that, because if I was in the other role, I probably would have honestly put in my 2 weeks, because it's just the environment, it's insane and it's very hectic and chaotic. So another just advice I would give if you are interviewing for a position that you deep down inside that yes, you're qualified for on paper, you think you can handle it, if you do have kind of like the managers and even the people that already are working there telling you like, hey, we see that you're qualified for this, but just that one bit of experience level that you haven't had at this particular position before, but they're still willing to kind of move you down to even more entry level, don't get offended, kind of take it as a blessing in disguise, because they're doing it for a reason. It's showing that they still want you there. They don't want to lose you. That's how I kind of looked at it. They'd rather bump me down and be able to keep me and then build me up to that position, than kind of just throw me into the wolves and essentially potentially lose me. So I guess with all of that being said, really you kind of just have to roll with the punches, take the rejection as redirection. Like I said, I think the most frustrating part is just going to be the people that don't reach back out and don't say anything. Don't be like me. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Like if you apply to things and you do have an interview coming up, still apply to other things because you never know how things are going to go. But I get the main thing is really just stay positive. I'll agree with Jessica. Don't sit on LinkedIn. LinkedIn gets very frustrating. What I took advice from some of my other friends who are in different fields, but it still works, is once you kind of find a company that you like, go to that company's website because they might have jobs that are not posted on LinkedIn. Go to the company's actual website and see what jobs are posted on there. If you know people who work for companies, reach out to them. They can a lot of times send in referrals for you. So literally just leverage any person, any foot in the door, any of that, use it, no matter how scary it may seem. And just remember, like, the worst they can do is say no. That's it. Just a no.
Such great insights from everybody. Thank you all for sharing that. So everybody kind of touched on this idea of like applying to jobs and trying to, and like having relevant experience. So what are the best ways, how can you market your skills on your resume that you learned in classes for these kind of positions and make all of that align? Or what was your strategy for doing that?
I can take that real quick. Basically, my strategy was the number one thing is don't just submit the same exact resume everywhere. So I would go through the job description and tailor it to match what they're asking for in the job description. I wasn't like lying or anything like that, but you can tailor it to make it look like I'm the exact thing that you're looking for based on your job description. So that, I think that was the main thing for me, was just really looking at the job description, and that's why I said go to the company websites to kind of just see like the culture of the company and really just tailor your resume. If you do have to do a cover letter, tailor your cover letter to match what the company's values are, specific skills that they're looking for. Don't be afraid of, if you like, it's not the best thing necessarily to keep every single job experience on your resume. Just keep what's relevant. I have plenty of stuff that has nothing to do with anything, so I erased it immediately. So just, it's okay if different jobs are getting different resumes. Like, never be scared to do that. But also just be willing to take the time to make edits and make changes to your resume, because in the long run, it will help you out. And then once you do secure that interview, really know the company, at least know it well enough to be able to answer questions in a way that you think would fit their culture. And then I'll also, in doing that, be prepared to ask them questions that are tailored to the role and to the company. So that's my like biggest piece of advice when it comes to that.
Thank you.
I can go next. So like how you can show your skills is like, as Kasey mentioned, I also tailored my cover letter especially to match the job role. And I would also like throw in some examples of how I would be able to use the skills that I actually learned during the 2 years of MPH. And also when you secure an interview, and when, like, for example, I'll give you what I was asked during one of my interviews was, if I know any, like, because I was an epi major, if I knew any and like what kind of analytical methods I had used during my 2 years. And I explained all the models, like the linear regression model, the multinomial, by giving examples of the projects that I did. So that was a good way of showing them that I had some knowledge of what I had done and what the job role requires. And also, just like the biggest piece of advice that I would like to give all of you would be, don't ever hesitate to say that you are willing to learn more, because most of the employers, they don't expect you to know everything and each and everything that's on their job description. They also are looking for people who are willing to learn and maybe grow in the job roles. Like speaking personally, right now I do R and Stata, which I did not learn in the 2 years of MPH. And like it was very hard to transition from like SAS to Stata or SAS to R, but I'm still in the learning phase. And it was in the job description, but don't ever hesitate to not apply for a job just because, like, just when you're thinking that you won't be able to do that, because most of the employers and most of the managers, they really want you to grow in the job role, they also want you to learn. So that was my biggest takeaway, that thank God I did not stop myself from not applying or just looking at these big words or like the softwares that I didn't know. But just always show your willingness to learn and move forward in any position that you're applying to.
And I will also completely agree with what everyone said about tailoring your resume, tailoring your cover letter. Don't send the same cover letter to everyone. Please don't do that. But yeah, I think that for me, because I'm in a planner position, and that requires sending a lot of emails and talking on the phone with a lot of people, not necessarily using like software programs or things like that. But I did have that on my resume. But also know that some people that are hiring you are looking kind of how you handle your interview, how your demeanor is, your attitude. I know for me, my interview was in person, and that was the one that I got the job. You know, I had interviews on the phone, on Zoom, and I really don't think that I was able to kind of like show who I was as a person through the phone. So I highly recommend, if you can, request an in-person interview. I know that they're scary. I literally wore a gray top, and whenever I left, I had sweat stains everywhere. So don't wear gray. But I know that they're scary. But I really think it's worth it just to be able to like meet everyone face to face and kind of sell yourself based off of, and be yourself, but like sell yourself based off of, you know, be positive, smile, like, I don't know, just be yourself.
Yeah, 100%. Y'all are giving such great wisdom right now. I'm over here, kind of snapping and saying, preach, And I will say, to one thing, it is, as somebody who's now been on the side of trying to like hire people and stuff like that, it's instantly clear if you actually tailored your resume and cover letter or not. And you'd be shocked how few people truly take the time to do something like that. So I think that all of you did that, and that I'm sure set you apart. So everybody touched on the interview process a little bit. So talk to us a little bit more about how did you prepare for the interviews, and then what were the hardest questions? And you can talk about whether your interviews were also in person and stuff like that. But how did you prepare for the interviews? What were the hardest questions?
I can go first. So I usually I did a couple interviews, and for most of it I did as Kasey mentioned that you should always look up the company, or if you know the person that you're doing the interview with, sometimes they do give you the name of the person you're interviewing with and sometimes they don't. But if you know the person who are interviewing with, I would highly recommend looking them up on LinkedIn or just Google or on their company website, and try to know more about what they do, just in order to prepare yourself for questions to ask, because they also see, that's what I feel, that they also see how much efforts you're putting into preparing for this interview and how much you're interested in this job role and in joining them. So I think that's one of the biggest thing I did for the interviews. And what else? I think other than that, no matter how much you prepare, but you can't always be fully prepared for an interview. You just need to, take it as it comes. But don't ever hesitate to talk about even your smallest achievements or even the smallest project that you have done. It might show some kind of skills that they are looking for. So nothing is big or small. Just talk about what you have done, and just be confident about it. Yeah, that would be my answer.
I'll go next. So I completely agree. It was hard for me because I didn't know how to prepare for my interview since it was in environmental conservation and this was fairly new to me. And so what did I do a day before the interview? And also, let's be honest, 20 minutes before the interview. No, I'm kidding. But I went on Google and I went South Carolina sustainability, blah, 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 blah. And I tried to cram my brain with everything, all things sustainable. And I look back on it and I laugh at myself because they didn't ask me a single question about that. They didn't they didn't care how much I knew about which recycling you need to use for that. No. But they wanted to see how I utilized my skills, I guess, in the past jobs that I worked in. And so being prepared, saying okay, let's look at this graduate assistantship that I did with the Childhood Obesity Initiative. How did I handle this? That's always the hardest question. It's the scenario question. That's always the worst one. So just try to have a bunch of scenarios in your head, and think about how you solve them. And instead of sitting there trying to think of something, just I don't know how to prepare y'all, because they always say say that you put in this position, how did you handle your time management? Just think about things like that, because that's what they're going to ask you. They're going to ask basic time management questions like that, and be honest. If you have your Google Calendar, that's what I said in my interview. I said I loved my Google Calendar, and they just want to see who you were in your past roles and how you handled problems. So in my position, it's not, I don't think that's everyone's experience, but for me, that's how it was.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, one my interviews, my first one was in person, the second one was over Zoom. The in-person one, that was actually more of a supervisor role. So they were kind of asking more, it's kind of some more applied questions like, hey, if you were in this position as a supervisor and you had an employee who was doing this, what would you do? And so those, it's kind of it's in your mind, what they what they want to hear kind of, but you also don't want to sound like a robot. So just when you're answering questions like that, you're gonna have an idea of what you should say, but don't say what you should say. Say what you genuinely would do. My biggest advice, in the interviews, just let your personality show. Still obviously be prepared. I will say my preparation process was probably not the greatest. I obviously knew the role that I was interviewing for. I knew about the companies, things like that. But my approach, which I don't necessarily recommend, my approach was kind of just, look, go in there, do the best you can, don't be too overwhelmed with it. Just be yourself. If you don't know something, just be honest. And if it doesn't work out, it's because it wasn't for you. So that's kind of, if you can't tell, that's been my approach to all of this. But I will say now in my current role, we participate in a lot of group interviews, and I can tell y'all what definitely don't do. We have had some horrible interviews, y'all. Don't come in there just like and know absolutely nothing. I think one of the questions that we ask a lot is to, in your own words, explain the position. Just to see, especially with the work that we're doing and how fast paced it is, and how you kind of, like I said, you don't really know what's going on for a long time, but you still need to be able to get with the program. So it's like, if you can't really give a good description of what the role is, we're waving red flags in the office. So things like that. Two, actually answer the question that's being asked of you. A lot of times, and I know it's nerve-wracking being in an interview, I know it is, but just try your best to off rip answer the question. And then if you're going to go on a tangent to then that supports the answer, that's fine. I just know we've had a lot of people interview where it's like we ask them a question and their answer literally has nothing to do with what we just asked. So things like that, just don't do it. Also another big thing, I know some positions, like the one I applied to, allows you to apply to a broad just coordinator role, for example, and they'll kind of match you to the department based on need. And a lot of times too, within the company, you can apply for multiple roles. There's nothing wrong with that. However, don't go into your interview and say like, oh yeah, I'm just applying for everything and kind of seeing what lands. Don't do that. That's possibly the worst thing that you could do. So really just be confident when you go into your interview, whether it's in person or over Zoom. Be confident in yourself. Let your personality show. I think Zach put in the chat, kind of go off of your lived experiences. Speak on what you know. Speak on what you've been through. Even experiences that don't necessarily have direct workplace ties, it still can speak to your character, your work ethic, things like that. So just at the end of the day, you can always fall back on who you are as a person. Because a lot of times, like what Jessica said, they're not really asking you job specific things necessarily. Just from both roles, they're not going to be like, oh, what does this specific term that you should have learned in your public health 101 class mean? They're not doing that. They're really just trying to see who you are as a person. If it's a team type setting, they're trying to see if you're going to fit in the team. So really just kind of just lean on those things, and you'll be fine. And pro tip, if it's on Zoom, be comfortable. You're not going to stand up. If you want to have on like sweats, do that. I agree. Don't wear gray. You're going to sweat. I don't care if you don't sweat. Don't do it. But just be as comfortable as you can be to be able to like present your best authentic self. That's my advice. If y'all can't tell, I'm a very laid back person. So if you want to take my advice, you can, but that's what I'm going to give you is the real laid back.
Yeah, and I think that no matter how much you prepare for an interview, you kind of know that there's certain types of questions people are going to ask. They're always going to ask you something you're not ready for. So that's when you can really pull back on that lived experiences, especially if it's not a one-to-one comparison, because that was one of our submitted questions. This is the idea of how strict are the experience requirements in job postings. And I think all of y'all have kind of talked to this idea about you may not have exactly what they're looking for, but you have enough of an angle to show why it's relevant enough. You know what I mean? And when you have a master's degree and graduate assistantship experiences and internship experiences, you know, there's enough to work with. So hopefully that answers that question. So would love to hear about, you guys went through the interview and were all offered your jobs and accepted those. So tell us about, did you negotiate your pay or did you not, or how did you handle all of that?
I can go first. Mine's really short and sweet. I was so thrilled to get a job. I did not negotiate my pay. I just took it because I was jumping up and down and very excited just to have a job. So that's my story. I didn't negotiate, so I can't really speak on this.
Yeah, that's also me. I did not negotiate. I was just so relieved that I got a job in a setting that I was looking for. So yeah, I did not negotiate the pay. And I was content. So
We're gonna go 3 for 3 here. I also did not negotiate anything. I think we can all agree kind of just with the way things are right now, with just getting a job at this point, is lovely. I was screaming literally when I got the call. With that being said though, negotiate. Unless you just are, unless the position that you have is paying well, negotiate. Because I will say that my job, it pays decent, but it's not, especially me being in Florida, I can't afford anything at all. So I kind of wish I would have negotiated, but also with that being said, it's important to understand the type of organization that you're applying to. I'm working at a nonprofit. There's not going to be too much wiggle room when it comes to negotiations anyways. So just kind of keep that in mind as well. But you're going to be excited. It's going to feel great. But if the opportunity is there, definitely see what you are able to negotiate. You'll thank yourself later. But also fully understand if you're like us and just are happy to get a job.
sorry, but having said that, something that I also learned from actually the panelists who were there last year that did this meeting, they also suggested looking up on Glassdoor the salary ranges that usually the company that you interviewed for or are offering you a job offers. So maybe that could be something that's useful. I did not negotiate it, but I definitely looked it up on Glassdoor. um yeah, so that is something you like if someone wants to do.
Yeah, and I think having an idea of what a fair range might be for the type of position you're applying for and in like different states would be helpful. I'm obviously happy to help y'all with that, or you can talk to other professionals. But for me, when I accepted my job much longer than a year ago, I'll just put it that way. I basically had a number in my head, and that was that I wanted, and they offered that number, so I didn't negotiate. But I think that you should at least try in most instances, because even if the answer is no, a counter, this is the one time the ball is really in your court, and they're not going to rescind their offer. They want you. So you're the coveted asset. So don't be afraid to ask for a little bit more. And I think a request of like a 5% increase is very modest and reasonable. And they're typically not going to freak out or be like, feel disrespected because you asked for something like that. And they don't want to lose you. Because remember, you're the hot commodity that, you're who they really want in their organization. So I think that, every situation is a little bit different, but worst case they say is no, and then you still have your gig. It may just delay the start date or something like that. So just some unsolicited advice and just talk to people too, I think is helpful. So we've asked about salary, and we're getting down to the last 5 minutes, and I'm very big about not going over on time, especially when we're in the middle of a work week, and all of you guys work now, so I don't want to keep you up too late here. So would each of you mind closing with some kind of final thoughts and words of wisdom for students and hopes as they enter the second year of their MPH programs and enter those next steps of their career after graduate school?
You can go ahead, Case.
Okay. So I really just feel like this is the time to, I think it's our second year, we have that opportunity to kind of take electives and things. I don't remember anything, obviously. But take this opportunity to, if you are able to kind of squeeze in some of those electives, really think about them. I think Jessica, you said that the environmental class is what really kind of pushed you over and kind of flipped your mind a little bit about what you wanted to do. I personally had that health communications class that I loved. I'm not necessarily doing that right now, but it's sparked other things for me. So really just the way that you're planning out your classes in these last semesters, and when you get to do your applied practice, kind of take into consideration things that you may try to tailor it towards things that you may possibly want to do. You may do something and realize that you don't want to do it, and you're like, oh no, never mind. But really just kind of take this time to really sit back and reflect and really think about what it is that you want to do. But then also at the same time, be flexible. Don't be like concrete and stuck in what you think you may want, because once you get out into the real world and are seeing jobs, something that's completely different may catch your eye and you may realize that it's the perfect fit for you and might have the perfect combination of other outside interests that you have outside of public health. So really just be open. Also apply early, start applying before graduation comes along. Don't be like me. And really just be proactive, be yourself in everything you do. Like I said, rejection is just redirection. The worst they can do is say no, and that's really not that bad when you think about it. And just always know that like the right thing is going to come for you at the right time. It might take a while, especially with the way things are right now, but just don't get discouraged. Know that the right position is going to be for you. And just anything negative, take it with a grain of salt because it wasn't meant to be. That's really my biggest piece of advice for y'all. Y'all are going to do great. Y'all are going to kill it.
So yeah, as Kasey said, just be motivated. I know it could be overwhelming sometimes, but it's totally okay. We all got through this, so you guys will also get out of this and get great jobs. But just remember to reach out to people if needed. Don't hesitate. They might respond, they might not, but some people, they really want to help you out, and they might be genuinely interested in showing you the right direction. Don't think that you're not qualified enough just because you don't have those one or two skills on your resume. Be willing to learn. And yeah, don't hold back. Apply to whatever job you think you would be. If you might not be a good fit, but even if you're interested, just apply to it and see how it goes. And yeah, good luck. Please feel free to reach out to me. I can share my email or phone number, whatever works with you all. And just best of luck. You guys are gonna be great.
Yeah, so my last takeaway to you guys would probably be it's everybody's first time living life. So no one's doing anything the right way. Everyone's on their own path. And what Kasey and Khushali are doing is not what I'm doing. And it's not the same path that I'll necessarily take to get to where I'll be in 10 years. And so comparison is the thief of joy. Don't look at other people. Don't congratulate people when they do get a job on LinkedIn, but don't get discouraged when you see that. It will be okay. It took me 7 months to find a job because I was being slow and impatient at the same time and frustrated. And this could not be the more perfect time for me. I think that if I started any earlier, everything happens for a reason. I am just so thankful that I'm in the position that I am now, and I did not expect to be in this position. And I love it so much. So if there's something that stands out to you and you want to go for it, because it might end up being something that you'll end up loving. And feel free to reach out to me. Just like Khushali said, text, phone number. I would be happy to talk to you guys.
And I'm connected with my people here, so if y'all don't get to them on LinkedIn or not, and you want to reach out, let me know, and I'll link y'all up, because that's what I do for a living, kind of. That was so well and beautifully put, all three of you. We cannot thank you enough for your time and your vulnerability and reflections tonight. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And Khushali, you said you remembered something somebody said last year in this panel, and I would guess that somebody tonight, something may happen similar in the future. But yeah, man, embrace your own path. It will be okay. You will find a job. You will have a career because you are being prepared in your training here to do that. And y'all are already dope on top of that. So that's kind of the cool thing. So without further ado, I hope everyone has a great Thursday evening. Thank you all for being here and for on the second night it was scheduled since the first time fell through. But stay in touch. Keep just focusing on all things good, and I'll talk to y'all soon. So have a great evening. See you guys.
Bye, everyone. Good luck.
Bye. Thank you. Thanks, Zach.